So you have the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, Amendment number 5. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime, unless on the presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. So grand juries are important. Grand juries are part of woven into the fabric of American jurisprudence, legal jurisprudence. It's also in Colorado's legal jurisprudence. This is 1876. This is from the address to the people of Colorado from the convention. The grand jury system has been so modified as to make a grand jury consist of 12 men instead of 23, any 9 of whom concurring may find a bill. Any 9 of whom concurring may find a bill. And the question whether it may not be abolished altogether is left to the legislature. Then the petite jury system has been so modified as to permit the organization of a jury of less than 12 men in civil cases, thereby materially reducing the expenses of our courts. A right of trial by jury in all criminal cases has been preserved for the purpose of protecting witnesses in criminal prosecutions, and that the accused may always meet the witnesses against him face to face. We have provided for the taking of depositions before some judge of the Supreme District or County Court, which can be used upon trial of the cause when the personal attendance of the witness cannot be obtained. The grand jury system, all they need is 9 of 12 to find a bill, to return an indictment, right? Either no bill or an indictment to find a bill. Hey, I found a bill. And it doesn't have to be unanimous. So it used to be 23 people in Colorado. The grand jury used to be made up of 23 people. But then it was reduced down to 12. And to find a true bill, all you need is 9 of those 12. Now we have 2 of the Bill of Rights of Colorado that are important for our discussion for grand juries. Section 8. So Article 2, Section 8 in Colorado's Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights of Colorado are self-executing. So these are laws just, from Mother Nature. They just... Okay, so Section 8. Article 2, Section 8. That until otherwise provided by law, no person shall for a felony be proceeded against criminally otherwise than by indictment, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. In all other cases, offenses shall be prosecuted criminally by indictment or information. And what that's saying is, the infamous capital, they went ahead and defined infamous capital cases as felony cases, and infamous is over a year, capital is death penalty. And it says when it comes to criminal charges, right, again, amongst the people, not in the land or naval forces or in the militia, but that you have to initiate the criminal proceedings with an indictment. You have to initiate the criminal proceedings with an indictment from the grand jury. In all other cases, offenses shall be prosecuted criminally by indictment or information. Meaning, you don't need the grand jury indictment. You can do it in other ways. Now, the other one, Section 23. Yep. Article 2, Section 23, right? So Section 8 and Section 23 are the ones that talk about the grand jury in Colorado's Bill of Rights. Now these are the Bill of Rights as of, that were written in 1876. So I don't think these have been modified. I can reread them in a second. Section 23, the right of trial by jury shall remain inviolate in criminal cases, but a jury in civil cases in all courts or in criminal cases in courts not of record may consist of less than 12 men, as may be prescribed by law. Herein a grand jury shall consist of 12 men, any 9 of whom concurring may find an indictment, provided the General Assembly may change, regulate, or abolish the grand jury system. The Gen Ass may change, regulate, or abolish the grand jury system. The grand jury system has not been abolished in Colorado, so they've kept it, but seems like they've altered it some respects. And we have, I'll do this one here. This is a little graphic adaptation of the Constitution. And they're just talking about the importance of the grand jury. There's a guy that's like, hey, you did no, then these thugs we're gonna torture you and then Americans demanding a Bill of Rights wanted protection from a government that might harass them from malicious, unfounded, or fallacious court trials if probable cause was to be necessary for arrest or search warrants. Then some kind of probable cause should also be necessary for trials of capital crimes where the guilty faces a death sentence, and what the Constitution calls infamous crimes where the guilty faces prison sentences longer than 1 year. The federal grand jury is the Constitution's answer to this. Federal grand juries are made up of 16 to 23 citizens. In secret hearings, prosecutors present them with a complaint or indictment against the accused. The grand jury then hears the evidence and witness testimony. If the grand jury decides there is enough evidence to conduct a trial, the indictment is returned, the accused may be arrested, and a trial proceeds. The Constitution exempts members of the military from grand jury protection. Instead, the Uniform Code of Military Justice applies as well to members of the militia in times of war or public danger. So, what does that mean? That means if I or anybody else or somebody, the Supreme Court has determined that the grand jury provision does not apply against the states, some of which have their own grand jury systems. This is among a few amendments that resist incorporation. In the American legal system, the accused does not have to prove innocence. Well, defendant, account for yourself. Instead, the burden of proof for guilt is on the prosecution. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that the grand jury system is woven into the fabric of the U.S. Constitution. The grand jury system, it's very important. It's also woven into the Colorado Constitution. Let's get the update of Colorado just to make sure. We'll talk about U.S. v. Costello in a second. But this is all about grand juries. The U.S. v. Costello is about grand juries. They're saying that it came from the tradition, English tradition, and that it was very popular. It was inquisitional, and that so the Bill of Rights is located in the very beginning, right? Yep, the Bill of Rights right here. Okay, so this is current law in Colorado. There's a grand juror section here too I want to read. So just the section 8 and 23, right? Section 8, prosecutions, indictment, or information. Until otherwise provided by law, no person shall for a felony be proceeded against criminally otherwise than by indictment, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. In all other cases, offenses shall be prosecuted criminally by indictment or information. So that language is identical. That hasn't changed for over 100 years, right? 150. That's good law for 150 years. Section 23, trial by jury, grand jury. The right of trial by jury shall remain inviolate in criminal cases, but a jury in civil cases in all courts or in criminal cases in courts not of record may consist of less than 12 persons, as may be prescribed by law. Hereafter, a grand jury shall consist of 12 persons, any 9 of whom concurring may find an indictment, provided the General Assembly may change, regulate, or abolish the grand jury system, and provided further the right of any person to serve on any jury shall not be denied or abridged on account of sex, and the General Assembly may provide by law for the exemption from jury service of persons or classes of persons. Okay, is that different? That sounded different, but the total law, section 23, it is different. It just says may change, regulate, or abolish the grand jury system, and then this keeps on going and says, provided further the right of any person to serve on any jury shall not be denied or abridged on account of sex, and the General Assembly may provide by law for the exemption from jury service of persons or classes of persons. So, the grand jury system is important in American jurisprudence and Colorado jurisprudence. So, the grand jury system, this is Colorado law. This is American law. CRS 1372-101, grand jurors term additional juries. Grand juries shall not be drawn, summoned, or required to attend the sitting of any court in any county in this state unless specially ordered by the court having jurisdiction to make such an order, and except as provided in subsection 2 of this section, the length of term served by a grand jury shall be as provided in section 1371, 120. In counties with a population of 100,000 persons or more, according to the latest federal census, a grand jury shall be drawn and summoned by the court to attend the sitting of said court at the first term of such court in each year. 3. In all other counties, the grand jury shall be called and shall sit at such times and for periods as the court may order on its own motion or upon motion by the district attorney of the judicial district in which the county is located. Upon motion of the district attorney and for good cause shown, the court may cause to be drawn and summon an additional grand jury. Number 5, a grand jury shall be impaneled, sworn, and charged in, and report to such court as the judges of the judicial district among themselves agree, or as they may by rule provide. Grand jury is an adjunct of the court. Lo Savio v. Keikel, 1974. The section fixes the time when such grand jury shall be impaneled. Butler v. District Court. Indictment against the defendant is not void merely because the grand jury returned the same at a term of court subsequent to the term in which it was organized. Buckler v. District Court, 1965. Okay. So, grand jury system is very important to America, to Colorado. It's part of current Colorado law. It's part of current American law. So, the importance of the grand jury is, very crystal clear. You can't just throw people's lives willy-nilly into the goddamn gutter. You can't just throw people's lives into the goddamn gutter. Let's say, person A accuses person B of being an arsonist, and they said, hey, You burnt down 10 houses. You're an arsonist. You've been burning that house. You burnt that house. You burnt 10 different houses down. If, person A accuses person B of burning 10 houses down, maybe they're right. Maybe they're wrong. If they're right, well, that's going to carry severe consequences. If they're wrong, well, that's some fucking bullshit too. I mean, you're not supposed to bear false witness against that neighbor. So if that's incorrect, then that means you really were going to fuck that person's life up based on lies, based on bullshit. And so the grand jury system is there to stop malicious prosecution. It's there to stop, malicious prosecution, to make sure there's a fair procedure for anybody and everybody, to make sure that there's due process, especially for the big crimes. In Colorado, you got petty offenses, you got traffic infractions, you got misdemeanors, and then you got felonies. Felonies are the big ones, right? So specifically in Colorado's Constitution, it said that felonies, right? You can't proceed against a person not just by infamous, capital or infamous cases, but specifically felonies. So you can't proceed. And so if person A accuses person B of being an arsonist, you burnt down 10 houses. You burnt down 10 houses. You got to pay for what you did. You did it. You got to pay for it. The whole point is to have a check on, major accusations like that, to make sure that, person A isn't just making up a bunch of bullshit. And so what this gives a grand jury system gives person B an opportunity to say, no, person A is on some bullshit, because of this, that, and the other. They also say you can indict a ham sandwich. So it's kind of like a preliminary hearing. A grand jury, it's weighted in on the side of the prosecution. It's weighted on the side of the prosecution. So the prosecutor is the one that presents it to the grand jury. And both, a judge can call it up, but it's the prosecutor that initiates, the proceedings with an accusation or with the indictment itself. So the prosecutor runs the grand jury. It's weighted, it's weighted in their favor. They say you can indict a ham sandwich, which, can you? I would like to see somebody try. We went ahead and indicted the ham sandwich for what? Murder in the first degree. For those arsons, person A. Person B did 10 arsons. It wasn't me, it was the ham sandwich. It wasn't me, it was the one-armed ham sandwich. So grand jury system is very American, very Colorado American. Colorado American as fuck. It's as Colorado American as the Denver Broncos. It's as Colorado American as marijuana and apple pie, and Frederick Douglass eating apple pie in front of an American flag and smoking a joint afterwards. It's as American as G.I. Joe. Grand jury system is very, very American. It's as American as G.I. Joe, American hero. Very American as a democratic republic. The right to free speech, the right to own and bear arms, the right to kick ass and take names. The whole point of the grand jury system, so person B says, no, I'm not the one that did the arsons. This other person did the arsons, or you're the one that's doing the arsons. You're the firefighter doing the arsons, and then putting the fires out as if you, but really. And so it gives the person, B a chance to not just, because what's the alternative? The alternative is, hey, you did that thing. You did them arsons, so fuck you. So one motherfucker could just, one motherfucking person, one police officer could just point to you and say that you did 10 arsons, and then you just have to get fucked because of some fucking corrupt piece of shit who just had it out for you? Jesus Christ, that's bullshit. So that's the point of a grand jury system. Perhaps, person B committed 10 arsons and needs to pay. Or maybe person A is on some bullshit. So you should ask a couple questions. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. It'd be insane, right? If I'm sitting there saying that you committed 10 arsons and that's all that, that's all she wrote. No, I accused you. I accused you. I arrested you. I wrote it down on a piece of paper. You're fucked. Now the system is just going to fuck you over. I bet you'd want to ask a couple questions. I bet you'd want a grand jury indictment or maybe, a cross examination or two. And then that's, the best thing, the best case for the grand jury is that it's, 9 people. In the federal thing, it's, 17 to 23 or something. So, you have to convince not just one, asshole, not just one son of a bitch, not just one motherfucker. In Colorado, you got to at least convince 9 people of the 12. And so when 9 people of 12 say, person B did the arsons, when 9 people say it, 9 citizens purported, supposed to be laymen, supposed to be of, by, and for the people. So instead of just some fascist cop who has some, rubber stamping fucking judge and then, wham bam, thank you ma'am, you nab them and we slab them kind of system. If you had a grand jury system that issued out all the indictments for felony cases, who could argue with probable cause? Who could argue with probable cause that 9 regular citizens looked at the evidence and determined, and sure, a grand jury, there could be a runaway grand jury, but I would, trust 9 to look at the evidence over just one person. One person, that's tyranny. That's absolute power. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. So having 9 citizens look at the situation and say, yes, there is, the indictment just says that there is probable cause that perhaps a felony may have occurred, so therefore a trial needs to happen. So the trial hasn't even happened yet. It's just saying that, yes, now the, proceedings of the criminal justice system can continue. There's other reasons for the grand jury: to preserve evidence, to preserve testimony, photos, videos, whatnot, get depositions. Grand jury system is also inquisitional. It's an inquisitional body, so that's a good thing. That's a good thing. You want the people of, by, and for the people to be able to have, the power to ask the questions that they need to ask in order to get to the bottom of things, to figure out, did person B, goddamn, is he burning fucking houses down? Is person B sitting there? He burnt 10 fucking houses down, and nobody's none the wiser. Nobody said shit about shit. So just as easy it is for some, piece of shit cop to just, falsely allege shit, it's also just as easy for that cop to pretend that their buddy's felonies aren't actually felonies. They could turn, away just as easy as they can. So you need a grand jury system. You need a grand jury system. It's American law. It's been good American law since what, 1776? 1791? Why did it take so long after the Revolution to get our Bill of Rights? So yeah, I would trust indictments, felony indictments from a council of citizens instead of just one asshole. Well, that one asshole looked into the situation. You got a council of citizens that looked into the situation because of me being, since we're deprived of the grand jury, I dare you to indict a ham sandwich. Try to indict a ham sandwich. Grand juries are as American as rock, flag, and eagles. The bald eagle isn't as American as the grand juror. The bald eagle's like, damn, he wishes he could serve on the grand jury. The bald eagle, Betsy Ross, when it comes to the grand jury system, Betsy Ross ain't shit. So this is English tradition embedded in the fabric. And freedom, Jesus, Santa Claus, Xmas, Thanksgiving, litigation, endless appeal system. Grand jury system is very, very American. It's as American as Xmas is. It's as American as Santa Claus. So you have, last but not least, I got 5 minutes to talk about US v. Costello. This is a grand jury system. This is case law. This is good case law. And so instead of having a council of citizens, a third party council of citizens, you're just going to have one asshole. No, you're going to get a grand jury system. In 1956 US v. Costello case, you're going to have Frank Costello. Yep, that Frank Costello. And they said he didn't pay his income taxes in 47, 48, and 49. They called 144 witnesses. They had 368 exhibits. And they had all these witnesses, all these exhibits, but when they presented the case to the grand jury, they just had 3 IRS investigators, 3 IRS cops, right? Agents who did the testifying. So these 3 IRS agents, looked at all 144 witnesses, looked through the 368 exhibits, and then they, summarized all of their findings. But they didn't have any firsthand knowledge of anything. So really the 3 IRS agents in front of the grand jury, their entire testimony was based on hearsay. Their entire testimony was based on hearsay. So did Frank Costello actually, report less income than what he actually was? Was he guilty? Was he not guilty? Well, in the very beginning, it wasn't even a question of putting it in front of the grand jury. Of course, it's going to go in front of the grand jury. The question was, can you indict somebody merely based on hearsay? Can you indict somebody by grand jury merely based on hearsay? And what the Supreme Court had decided in 56 US v. Costello is, of course you can. Of course you can indict based on just fucking hearsay. It's a grand jury. It's the goddamn grand jury system. It's important. It's embedded in the fabric of America for a long ass time. Of course, the grand jury. Are you kidding me? Just hearsay? They could have went ahead and indict, Frank Costello on less than hearsay. Maybe a little bird told him something. Even less than hearsay, Maybe they just had a gut feeling. You got to establish probable cause, and there's no rules dictating to the grand jury, how they can investigate, what they can investigate, how they can decide, what they could decide upon. Essentially, 9 and 12. You get 9 and 12 agreeing with what the prosecutor puts in front of them, and then it's an inquisitional body too. So, right, I would think that the grand jurors could bring cases to the prosecutor. That would be the best relationship, the grand jury and the prosecutor. So the prosecutor would stay humble. They would stay humble to the citizens, of America, and the grand jurors, in order to get felony accusations, felony charges, to initiate those proceedings, you have to get the grand jury indictment. So instead of just one fucking asshole, one fucking, 2 shots in the dark, now Huey's dead. So one fucking prick in an alley, right? Oh, well, one prick in an alley, he said this happened. And that's good enough for the entire system to go. That's fucking bullshit. But if you had 9 men of 12, right, or 20 men, or how many in the federal grand jury system, say, you had a third, non-biased layman, a third-party citizen, council of citizens that said that, perhaps, maybe, probable cause that a felony could have occurred, so therefore a jury trial or the rest of that needs to happen. That's good. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So we have a right to, a trial by jury, right to speak, right to peacefully assemble, right to religion. And does the grand jury have a right to indict based merely on hearsay? Yes, of course they do. Because the grand jury system is amazing. Amazing. And that's the 1956 US v. Costello decision. That's the Costello decision of 56. What's my point? My point is, motherfuckers, you got to have a grand jury. You can't just say that person did a felony without a goddamn grand jury indictment. And if you're trying to do some shit,